Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Occult Perspectives. So, today I'm going to pick up where I left off last time in the video on Lucifer, Satan, and the devil. We're explaining the differences between the three, what they are not. This video is going to focus more on Lucifer, even more so than the last video. So, let's go ahead and get into it. Right where we left off from last time, we were reading out of Kabbalah, Qliphoth, and Goetic Magic. If you have not watched part 1 of this video series, I recommend you go back and watch part 1 first. So we are on page 41, if you're able to follow along. I was able to find a free PDF online, which was really cool. I made a note here that on page 41 there's an interesting Platonic society ideal, or set of ideals, kind of how society should be set up, almost. At least I would think. 3 levels on the original tree of life also correspond to the ideal Platonic society, with philosophers assigned to the supernal triad, warriors to the ethical triad, and farmers and craftsmen to the nourishing foundation. The highest level represents the divine trinity from a spiritual Kabbalistic perspective. The middle represents the angels, and the lowest level represents man and the remaining parts of creation. Da and Tiphareth act as mediators between the levels. Da, or Lucifer, is the angel closest to the Trinity. So when the tree of life was all one component, as we talked about in the last video, the tree of life was all interconnected. There was no bottom Sephiroth. So you had, this was considered the lower sun, and this was the higher sun, which would be like the ultraviolet energy. We'll get into that in a little bit. So this was Da, and also associated with Lucifer. And then this was Archangel Michael. And this, Lucifer, was the closest, it says, to the angel closest to the Trinity. So up here you've got Raziel, you've got Zophkael, and Metatron. So originally Lucifer was up on that level. Let's continue. I'm still on page 41. Oh yeah. Man before living in Malkut originally lived in Yesod, which is, of course, the astral realm. It says here, the lowest Asaya does not exist on the original tree. Asaya being the fourth world, the lowest world on the Kabbalistic tree. You have these 4 worlds. If you want to go ahead and pause this video. Asaya does not exist on this tree, the original tree of life, and neither does the Sephirah Malkut. Man was originally comprised only of the principles of the higher worlds, and his abode was the astral level and Yesod. So there you go. If there's anybody watching this video who has not watched my videos before, welcome to this channel. Please subscribe. Please ring the bell for notifications on new videos. But you might want to go back and watch some of my other videos first for better context before you continue with this video. But I'm assuming most of you watching this have probably already been subscribed. And we have over 400 subscribers now. I think we have like 405 subscribers or something like that. Over 14,000 views. So thank you everyone who's been a part of this channel. Super awesome. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So the fall of Lucifer. On the original tree of life, Yesod, the astral abode of man, is an exact reflection of the highest plane, Kether. So in the original tree of life, this was an exact reflection of this. Here, man is an exact image of God. Perhaps this is why Lucifer and the angels around him, Samyaza, Azazel, and the sons of heaven, begat to desire man. They talk about this, the book of Enoch and Genesis 6. Yesod is the plane of sexuality because Yesod is associated with the genitals if you place the tree of life on the body. You saw it as the plane of sexuality, but on the perfect tree it appears in a sublimated and sleeping form. Interesting. Lucifer, Da, the original serpent, represents the divine force of creation that is able to carry out God's, the Trinity of Kether, Hokmah, Bina's idea of creation. So originally, Lucifer was this serpent that carried out, represents the divine force of creation that carried out God's will or idea of creation. Very interesting. Lucifer being a part of creation, as we've talked about before. Lucifer Da sinks down to man's level and awakens the power of creation and the sexual energy in man. Thus, man can reach knowledge which was previously only accessible to God and the angels. Whether they're talking about the demiurge here or ultimate source comes into question. That's something I've talked about multiple times in videos before. Thus, man can reach knowledge which was previously only accessible to God and the angels. Da'at, or knowledge, is the fruit that man consumes in the myth of paradise. So there you go. There's the answer to the metaphor. The descent of the fallen angels down to the plane of man and their sexual union with man was a new and forbidden union between the planes. I think I'm going to continue reading on this page. We're on page 42 now. Let me see what I put in my notes, though. Yep, read all of page 43, 42, read page 43. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and read through the next couple pages real quick. Lucifer, who had previously acted as the guardian and mediator between the divine and the levels below, left his position and united the higher levels with the lower. The astral level of man, Yesod, had been the lowest and final part of creation on the tree of life, on the perfect tree of life. Mankind was then fertilized by the seed of the angels, and instead of being merely a creation, mankind became creator when they gave birth to the Nephilim, the giants that are ascribed in Genesis 6, and that are the progeny from the unity between men and angels. And Damien Eccles talks about these Nephilim not necessarily being literal giants, but their presence as giants. So it makes sense that if angels or spiritual beings somehow had reproduced, it would have created beings that are have extensive power or something like that. And that's where the whole it's these watchers or these fallen angels or whatever is where a lot of magic seems to come from. That's where Damien says the watchers are essentially a very key component, and where ceremonial magic even comes from. The beginnings of those energies, that's the story, getting down to the roots of those original ancient stories. And a lot of this dark side, left-hand path philosophy will help you understand those concepts better. It gives you a better idea than studying just the light. Sorry, I had a message. I was checking that on my phone real quick. The perfect closed system of the original tree of life was broken. After having eaten of the fruits of knowledge, the divine spark is awakened in man. The powers of God and heaven feel threatened, and in Genesis 3:22, God declares, "And the Lord God said, Behold, the man is become as one of us, to know good and evil. And now, lest he put forth his hand and take also of the tree of life, and eat and live forever." And there's this theme of immortality and the fallen angels in the book of Enoch. I believe they formed some kind of covenant or pact on Mount Hermon. There's a lot of interesting lore in that. You even start getting into like some of the esoteric aspects of Freemasonry and stuff, and it all intertwines. Interesting to note too that, "And the Lord God said, Behold, the man is become as one of us," plural. So who were they referring to when God said he has become as one of us? Sounds like more than one being, perhaps. So God banishes man from the Garden of Eden and forces him to cultivate the soil from which Adam had arisen. Cherubs holding flaming swords guard the path to the tree of life to prevent man from eating of it. Now the fall has occurred, and the degraded tree of life is constructed. An abyss is created between the divine level and the worlds below. Man is thrown out of his astral garden down to the plane of matter. The Sephirah Malkut is created. So the bottom circle on the tree of life. Lucifer, Da'at, loses his place closest to the throne of God, the supernal triangle, got up here, and is thrown down into the abyss. I don't know why this tree of life has the abyss way up here, right where Da'at is at. I would assume the real abyss would be lower on the tree of life, but I could be wrong. Be into the, thrown into the lower levels. The abyss is inside and beyond Malkut. So it's actually down here. It has something down here on this tree of life called the veil of the profane. Yet the abyss is inside and beyond Malkut. Da'at becomes the invisible 11th non-Sephirah. After the opening of the abyss, the supernal triangle creates a sphere isolated from the rest of the tree of life. In the middle of the supernal triad, God's all-seeing eye is revealed, a symbol that can be recognized from old church paintings and Masonic seals. This symbol represents God's totalitarian power and the isolation of his authority in relation to the lower levels. The adepts of the light worship and praise this power. They submit themselves to God, Yahweh, and attempt to live in accordance with his laws and decrees. For Jewish Kabbalists, it means trying to live according to the Mosaic laws. For Christian Kabbalists, it is about following Jesus and placing their faith in him. Kabbalistically, the crucifixion of Jesus symbolizes how through his death he creates a bridge over the abyss and thus reunites God and man. So that's interesting. The Kabbalistic goal is to appease Yahweh and through this restore the original harmonic order on the tree of life. The goal is to return to the childlike state of the Garden of Eden. For the monotheistic Kabbalistic adepts of the light, a Messiah is needed to create a bridge over the abyss. T'Parith has that role since the higher black sun, Da'at, has been thrown into the abyss. So this is the black sun, it's been thrown down into the abyss. After the fall, I just read that, sorry. No. After the fall, T'Parith becomes the central sun on the tree of life, so now T'Parith's in the center. Both the Messiah and the dragon slayer, Michael, Archangel Michael of course, are associated with T'Parith. It is through T'Parith that the abyss can be crossed. The adepts of the left-hand path walk another more difficult path. It is a path that is hard and draconian, but which has the greatest goal, that of becoming a god. Instead of repairing the damage of the fall, the dark adept glorifies the fall and allows the destruction to be fulfilled. The dark adept crushes the old to let something new arise in its place. It's the phoenix rising from the ashes. The left-hand path leads away from the tree of life and further into the tree of knowledge. The different klipoth can be viewed as fruits on the tree of knowledge, which man has eaten. When man has eaten the fruits of knowledge, God prevents him from eating of the tree of life. The adepts of light are hoping to be resurrected after death in heaven or a new paradise. The dark adepts are seeking to access the fruits of a new tree of life through the tree of knowledge. This strife is the alchemical search for the elixir vitae and the stone of the wise. The work of the philosopher's stone is the alchemical process of creating an original tree of life that resembles and represents the perfect diamond. By fulfilling the path that begun when the fruits of knowledge were consumed, man can now reap the fruits of life. Interesting. So you have like these two different paths, and one wants to reunite with Source, and the other wants to create itself as a new type of Source. It wants to be a god, in the world that it's already created, and dig further into the mysteries rather than letting go and going back to Source and becoming one and non-dualistic with everything. So here we are on Earth having this experience. As I've said before, I'm more gray magician, so I really see positive things in both sides, both paths. I don't work with like Goetic entities or anything like that. I don't work with the demon stuff. I work primarily with angels. So there's a certain level of darkness within myself I've really come to accept. And I think studying the left-hand path and philosophy and all that stuff really helps with that. At the end of the day, I just want to be, a benevolent person. It doesn't matter whether I'm dark or whether I'm light. It's more just people get too caught up in that. It's more just like the actions that you've done, have they helped to create a new world? Are you following your path and not hurting people along the way, or are you just, if you're fulfilling your true will and doing your thing, and you're not bothering anybody, it doesn't matter so much if it's light or dark. You're not really causing damage or anything. So I would say follow whichever path appeals more to you. Just wanted to throw that out there real quick. I have a little bit more to read through this, and then hopefully I'll be able to get into the other notes I have on Lucifer as well that I got from New Life Tools channel, spelled Nulyfe Tools. Tools is spelled normally. So they talk about, I don't think we got into it in the last video, and I don't know if we'll read about it in the rest of this. Let me see what I have left to read. You're on page 44. Skip to the bottom of page 44, read all of page of 45, read all of 46, and read all of 47. So there's really not too much more to read. But what I did want to say before I continue this real quick is basically in this new aeon, we've followed the rules of, I forget where I read this, I think it was in this book later on, and we won't get too much further. We won't read from this Kabbalah, Qliphoth, and Goetic magic too much, because I've read from it a bunch already. If you want to learn more, just find it online or buy yourself a copy. I'm sure I'll be using that book as a reference to go back to, Qliphothic stuff. If we end up studying that, it'll be a good reference point and tool. But in the New Age, in the Old Age, we followed the tree. We've used more the tree of knowledge. We followed the Mosaic Law and all of these, these old patriarchal laws, which are a thing of the Aeon of Pisces, the patriarchal age. Now we're coming into the age of the child, the Aeon of Horus. So now it's more about eating the fruits from the tree of life. And they say that it's a more evolved version, of course, we know, than the tree of knowledge. So instead of following these strict laws, we know this love and compassion, which actually transcends the old tree, and we start learning more about the higher worlds and the Sephiroth, and eating that knowledge from the tree of life, rather than being trapped in this such a dualistic concept of right and wrong. And we should have a more common sense view of what's right and wrong. We've kind of made it this really complicated thing. And then we won't have to spend as much time on that. We'll spend more time raising our vibration, raising our consciousness, and all of those things. So let me go ahead and get to this. I'll read the rest of this real quick. There's not too much left, but it is a little bit, so bear with me. The opening of the abyss. The paths on the perfect tree of life are altered after the fall of man. Before the fall, paths went from Kether, Hokmah, Bina, Hesed, Geburah, and Taparth to Du'at. Let me see if I can skip some of this, because I don't think I need to read all of this. Page 44. Skip to the bottom of 44 and read all of 45. Da'at falls down and contributes to the creation of the material world. Of the three remaining paths, correspondingly fall down towards the material level and the Sephirah Malkut. The path from Hesed is broken loose from its firmament. It's still just talking about the destruction of this tree, all the paths falling. I don't know why I was supposed to read all this. Where Da'at once existed, the abyss opens up on the tree of life after the fall. According to certain Kabbalists, the abyss is called Masak Mabdil, which denotes a scrap heap for banished failures. If I could talk. Many entities dwell in the abyss, such as the Mesukil, the one who conceals God, an entity that conceals both the human and divine mistakes deep down in the abyss. So the human and divine mistakes. So not only do humans make mistakes, the divine make mistakes. They're making a note of there. That's interesting. The abyss is ruled by demonic beings like Abaddon and Choronzon. I've never known how to say that name correctly. Choronzon. The abyss has been associated with Gehenna and the burning hell of the damned, which is named after a burning scrap heap southwest of Jerusalem. So that's where the idea of hell comes from, is a burning scrap heap southwest of Jerusalem. Interesting. The abyss is the gate to the Klapothic anti-worlds, in which Lucifer establishes his pandemonium after the fall. In Nordic mythology, Nephilim partly corresponds to the Kabbalistic abyss, the goddess Hel. Interesting. Hel, that's probably where they get that word from too. Is cast down into the world of darkness and cold. Niflheim, the gate to her is the dark cave, can't pronounce that, which is guarded by the hellish beast Garm. Okay, what else did I say to read? 45, 46, and 47. Let me see if there's anything really of interest in these next couple pages. Most common conception regarding the serpent in the Garden of Eden is that it is a form of Satan or Lucifer. According to many theologians, though, the serpent was Lilith. There you go. The woman who, in apocryphal myths, was the first wife of Adam, and who was originally a female Sumerian demon of storms. Lilith is often depicted as a woman with a serpent's body below her waist. She coils down from the tree of knowledge and tricks man into eating the fruits of knowledge. From a Kabbalistic perspective, Lilith is originally connected to the Sephirah of knowledge, Da'at. So Lucifer and Lilith both together. Let me see if there's anything else here of super interest. I'm just skimming over this real quick. Da'at, the daughter, is a form of the Shekinah. It's like the dark version of the Shekinah, the female aspect of the divine. In the myth of Lilith, the first wife of Adam, it is told that she was created independently of Adam, unlike Eve, who was created from the rib of Adam. Thus, Lilith did not want to submit to Adam, something that led to an argument regarding who should lie underneath during sex. Finally, God had to intervene, and he attempted to force Lilith to submit to Adam, but Lilith spoke the secret name of God, Shemhamforash, and managed to escape. She escaped out of the Garden of Eden to the wildlands, where she encountered demons, like Samael and Asmodeus. The Kabbalistic interpretation of this mythical drama is that Da'at, the daughter Lilith on the original Tree of Life, existed above Taparith, which then represented Adam. Da'at must submit to Taparith. So this was Lilith and this was Adam. Lost my spot. Da'at must submit to Taparith, and at this stage the order of the original Tree of Life is broken. Da'at tumbles into the abyss and falls outside the original Tree of Life. As a compensation of the now lost Da'at, Lilith, Adam receives a new woman, which is Eve, and the Sephirah Malkut replaces Da'at as the daughter. Malkut is the fallen woman who is submitted to the solar and patriarchal force of Adam Tiphareth, or Adam Tipperet. She is also the principle that enables the creation of the material world and its continuous existence through material conception. But inside Eve, Malkut broods Lilith as her dark alter ego waiting to arise. This corresponds to Maya and Shakti and Tantrism, which are two sides of the same principle. Maya maintains and reproduces the level of illusions, dualities, and matter. We've heard of this before, the term Maya, illusion. At the same time, she is Shakti, the reptilian primeval force that can arise and destroy the illusions in the material plane. Through her fall, Lilith enables the creation of Eve, Malkut. Interesting. So through her fall, this enables Lilith's fall, the creation of Eve becomes possible. And we have that theme again of some, like this necessary evil, like sometimes things have to happen in a so-called negative way for the real true outcome, to transpire. Da'at means knowledge, and the counterpart of the Da'at, Shekinah, in Greek and Gnostic philosophy is Sophia. We've heard of Sophia being wisdom before. She who denotes wisdom and knowledge, probably represented pretty well by the priestess tarot card, I would think. Originally, philosophy, which in Greek means love of wisdom, implied a love of Sophia on a level that corresponds to the tantric erotic mysticism. Philosophy was actually a Greek Gnostic path on which the philosophers strived to awaken the dark goddess through erotic rites to gain power and wisdom and to become a god. So there you have it. Interesting stuff. A lot of people don't know, the past and like the Gnostic Christian views and the Gnosticism, and there's just so many branches of spirituality and so much more knowledge to be gained out there, than what's commonly preached or taught. Read all of 46 and 47. I think that's what I just read. All right. And I highly recommend this book, Kabbalah, Qliphoth, and Goetic Magic. And the author of this book is Thomas Carlson with a K. So check that out, most definitely. All right. And then the rest of these notes, oh my gosh, I totally missed something. Skim through all this and then read the last couple paragraphs of page 55. And I just closed it out too. I just saw these extra notes. It shouldn't be too hard to find though. Let me get back to where I was. Doctroid. That's the website I use. So there's something on page 55 I missed. Because Samael ends up becoming a very interesting character as well. Gotta keep going down. I'm gonna make this bigger too. I messed myself all up. Alright, 55. Hopefully there's not too much more to read, that way I can get to the rest of what I needed to. Last couple paragraphs of page 55. The pillar of mercy, the Sephiroth on the left side. Let's see. The forces of the left side are mainly active during the process of creation, since it demands a separation from God's original unity. So this is where it's talking about Geburah again, creating this sense of division even in the beginning. And even in the Ein Sof, the very beginning of creation, there was a duality. There was a part that wanted to not be a part of creation, it wanted to be like anti-life, and then the part that did want to be a part of creation and be a part of the manifested world. So both sides, there were two sides, even in the beginning, even before the tree of life was formed. I find that very interesting. The forces of the left side are mainly active during the process of creation, since it demands a separation from God's original unity. The universe is created when the dividing destructive principle is active. This thought is important in Kabbalah since it protects Kabbalah from an otherwise imminent pantheism in which God exists within creation. The fact that it is the destructive principle that is the cause behind the universe can at first seem paradoxical, but it is the dividing force that enables manifoldness and individual existence. Without this force, everything would melt together and unify. So without this side and only the mercy side, everything would just be sucked into one. There would be no separation, there would be no division at all. That is what they're saying. If we take man as an example, life begins with the splitting of a cell, which causes the creation of numerous other cells that enable the creation of new life. The dividing force is the tool that is necessary to create life from other life, but is also the very same force that cuts off the thread of life. So that's interesting. It's the same force which creates and removes life. In the Sephirah Bina, some of the original principles on the Pillar of Severity can be found. So we're going up here, because this is the top of this pillar, the Pillar of Severity over here, the Boaz pillar. Some of the original principles on the Pillar of Severity can be found in Here the Root of the Universe, as well as the roots of limiting, dividing, and law-regulating forces can be found, because a lot of magic to do with binding and pacts and stuff like that, and tradition. This is Saturn, the sphere of Saturn, like the Archangel Zophael, it's all about those kind of Saturnian things. Its limiting, dividing, and law-regulating forces can be found. On the other hand, it is only at Geburah that the disintegrating So moving down here, it's only here that the disintegrating and judging forces are fully expressed, although harmonized by the uniting forces of Hesed. Geburah is viewed as the root of evil by most Kabbalists, and the actual definition of evil was often separation, quality characteristic of Geburah, as Gershom Sholem explains in the chapter Sirah Ara, Good and Evil in the Kabbalah, in the book on the mystical shape of the Godhead. Page 56 and 57. Cool lore on Samael. So there's more interesting stuff on Geburah, which I'll go ahead and not worry about too much. There is interesting information on Samael, though. According to many Kabbalists, Satan is born through the sinful acts of man. One side of God becomes an independent evil force through the disobedient side of mankind. Several Kabbalists claim that the serpent is the principle which causes division in existence and which enables Satan or Samael to become an individual evil principle. The serpent corresponds to instincts considered sinful, but was also associated with the demon mother Lilith, as we said before. Samael, Satan's name in Jewish literature, originally an aspect of God, and several interpretations is also found in the 72 names of God, and the name Sa'el with an apostrophe. When the force of Geburah became independent, Maveth, also known as death, broke into existence, and also into the name of Sa'el, which thereafter became Samael, the angel of death. The faithful Jewish Kabbalists believed that the arrival of the Messiah, death, would be defeated, and they also believed that when man reached the original paradisiacal existence, the paradise existence at some stage in the future, Samael would be released from the principle of death and once again become one with God and renew the name Sa'el, S-A''E-L. So that's interesting. So you have this idea of this dark angel, the angel of darkness, being transmuted into light and then becoming one with God again. You're claiming his original name, and I think the whole idea goes in line with Lucifer too. So yeah, okay, I think that's all. Finally, we got through the parts of that book I wanted to talk about a little bit at least. There's an interesting thing too, that how Cain and Abel, that Cain was actually the son of the union of Samael and Lilith, I believe, or Samael and Eve. There's a video on that. I believe it's Legends of History or Myth and Mythology Explained, one of those two channels. I tend to get those two mixed up. Alrighty, we are already at 32 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and try to get through some of this stuff as quick as I can. As I said, this information all comes from Brother Yusef's channel, New Life Tools. So I have a little chart here, the differences between Lucifer, Satan, and the devil. Here's what he has to say about Lucifer. Of course, Lucifer represents the planet Venus. It was actually originally called Planet Lucifer. It's a more feminine energy or entity. Not mixing that up necessarily with a physical female being, but the energy itself, what Lucifer represents, is more feminine in nature than traditional masculine archetypal energy. Son of the morning, the brightest star in the morning. That's why it's called the son of the morning. Once worshipped as a god, light bearer, of course, entity of light. It's a special kind of light, ultraviolet light, and I wonder if this could be compared with the violet light that we see coming from like Saint Germain, like the purple flame, and also the archangel Zadkiah. We've talked about those things in prior videos. Is there some kind of connection with this ultraviolet Luciferian light that this angel seems to represent? Ultra means beyond, so ultraviolet, beyond violet, beyond the spectrum of light. Connects to dark or black light as well, and it penetrates through light and darkness, so it's actually beyond light and darkness. It's like the highest spectrum of light. Very interesting stuff. Alright, so that's Lucifer. Now, Satan. It also has something to do with the chemical of melanin. I don't know if that's talking about the melanin in our skin. I'm assuming that has something to do. I didn't understand that reference in the video that I watched. And there's different levels of Satan. Satan corresponds to many different things. A lot of the times it's a title. There's the Christian view of Satan versus actual Satanism, like Anton LaVey Satanism. That's like a totally different thing. That's more of a philosophy, a carnal-based philosophy, which, embraces the physical. It embraces what we are. We're here. Why not enjoy our lives? Embrace it. Embrace good food. Embrace, good everything. That's kind of the part of the philosophy. That's not getting very deep into it. They have a lot more that goes into it. It's a pretty deep belief system. I actually think they have a lot of good points. The astral fourth dimension. So Satan has something to do with the astral being, a fourth dimension extraterrestrial being. A draconian or Anunnaki connection there. It's a demigod that came to enslave our race, perhaps. With Lucifer's help, became free. Satan is a title that you achieve. It has to do with the ego. Satanists embrace the ego, represented by the upside down pentagram too. You've got, instead of unity above duality, you have duality, superior to unity. It's the embracing of the carnal, where we are right now. Lucifer is a higher level, whereas Satanism, or Satan himself, this fourth dimensional being, imprisons you, keeping you in ego state. The soul is the real you. The ego is the ego identity, or the name that thinks it's real. I've heard a lot about the ego identification. Oh gosh, what's his name? He talks about that a lot. David Icke. I don't know why I forgot his name there for a second. And Brother Yusef was talking, I don't know if it's Yosef or Yusef, sorry if I'm butchering that, but he talks a lot about, too, how the music industry, if something's talking about how much money I've got, all these material things, technically it's a really low form of Satanism. I think there's like different levels of Satanists. Some are just totally like caught up in the material and not studying the higher aspects. And then there's Satanists who are more philosophers. They actually understand like the intellectual levels of Satanism too. That's like a more refined dark side, in my opinion, than, just, getting sloppy and being engrossed in all the things physical without any of the higher speculations. You can still be dark side and still be very intellectual. I don't know why anybody would think that's not the case. You can still be a good person and embrace carnal and dark side attributes. That's getting back to the whole gray magician thing. Okay, and then the third thing, so that's Satan, the fourth dimensional being, Satan, and then we have the devil, which is more of a third dimensional energy. It's more of a mindset. Anyone can become a devil or do devilish things, devilish acts. I see people who, in my opinion, they do represent more of a devil level. It's more of a subhuman level. Just very gross people, basically. Just because you're into physical things or carnal things doesn't mean you have to be gross about it. Be respectful of others, respect others' boundaries and stuff. And I think that's more as a world. As the world's moving forward, that's more of where we're going, allowing people to just be, let people be and do their own things, but don't shove it in everyone's face, Sorry, this video is going so long. I'm starting to get tired already. I've just been kind of tired all day anyway. I don't know where I was going with that, though. Oh, people just being devils, in a sense. Just doing really heinous things, really heinous crimes. Devils can also be negative thought forms that feed this energy loop. It's a lower barbaric side of the human being. Makes sense. A lot of people, they might have rough childhoods or rough pasts, and that's kind of what's helped form them into that. But remember, ultimately, it's our responsibility. It's not always our fault, but it's our responsibility to not channel that out onto others. I can't even think of the word I'm trying to use. Don't project everything onto others. Work on yourself, and you'll be able to get right from there. Okay, I don't know how much more of this I'll be able to go through. This is a 40-minute video now. It's going to take me a minute to upload this. Natural laws are right and wrong versus good and evil is more perspective. That's more getting into hermeticism and stuff. Karmic consequences. The evil aspect comes from your beliefs. No such thing as truth till you decide what truth is. I kind of liked that. So the Lucifer is the closest you can see or sense. It's a purplish or blue energy, similar to almost as we said before, the Zod-Kael or the Saint Germain energy. The beginning of light to a certain degree, push knowledge and potential. Beyond 8th dimension. Lucifer is beyond the 8th dimension. This is where you break the quarantine that's been set on this planet. It's kind of interesting. He goes on to say, Lucifer feeding Adam and Eve knowledge to free them. So it was perhaps, Adam and Eve were set free from a cage, in a sense, from a god that was not the ultimate god, but more of a demiurge. Necessary evil, quote, evil that God allows, but it really is just a test. And when you pass the test, the evil disappears. Working through darkness. That's why we're having these physical experiences anyways, to have some kind of tests somewhere along the line. To figure out who we really are, because you don't really know who you are until you're put in the situation. Ultraviolet angel, Lucifer, as we've said before. Michael is the twin, talked about in Kabbalah books, the twin sons. Oh yeah, we talked about that, T'Parith and Da'at being the dark sun, and the central sun. Michael is the highest aspect of protection and the warrior, most powerful being the creator made to make sure that things are in their place. Lucifer is the ultimate light being. He's involved with, she would be more accurate, is involved with the Galactic Council trying to free mankind. Michael's the most powerful archangel now. Lucifer is the light of the flame. Michael represents the fire of the flame. So interesting. Lucifer, the light of the flame. Michael is the fire of the flame. Your soul and everything comes from beyond, 8th dimension. Anything below is an illusion. The soul is formed on higher dimensions and given a name and body. Lucifer wants to break you free from the illusion. Satanic energy has a trapping feeling, simply staying in the physical rather than breaking free. Angel or angles of light. Lucifer is the highest angle of light, as well as Michael. Lucifer is beautiful, but the world puts her in a negative light on purpose to keep that energy from you. Came to free man from the hold of the demigods, so Lucifer came to help man. Lucifer never fell. She is still in the higher dimensions, playing the role of knowledge giver. Luciferian knowledge is potential. Ultimately is potential. Highest aspect of energy is actually feminine. It's not masculine. A lot of people say those most primordial energies in the universe were originally feminine. We've talked about that before in the Madame Blavatsky videos. As you go higher, it gets darker. It's more hidden. It's not necessarily that it's dark or black or evil. It's dark because it's hidden. It's even further beyond. It's more veiled. Hidden, not evil. It's the hidden Christ in the darkness, the primordial chaos and darkness. Michael is the highest aspect of masculinity. Archetypes become more androgynous in higher realms anyway. Satan is the adversary. So this is Satan now, not Lucifer. You are your own adversary. Ego trying to keep you from being spiritual. The 4D is not that high. Your true self is much higher. The angels which broke away from the Galactic Council and Anunnaki are trapping you in these lower realms. They're the fallen angels. Michael Ford, Luciferian author, impure form mixed with Satanism. I don't know why I wrote that there. The Gnostics, the Ophites branch, Luciferians. Satan did fall. So not Lucifer didn't fall, but Satan fell. The adversaries. That's the title of Satan, the adversaries. The Ein Sof Or, 8th dimension question mark. The demigod reveals. The demigod realm is the Ein Sof Or, I guess. Sustains the physical world, and it makes the tree of life possible. Dark energy, dark matter. Dark or black means unknown rather than evil, as we've said before. Dark energy is actually the strongest in the universe. The Ein Sof, so this is the next level up. I don't know how well you can see these 3 letters here, but the Ein was the no thing in the beginning. So the Ein Sof, the Ein Sof Or, this was the Kether, and then the Ein Sof Or was the realm of the demigods, as we just said, moving up to the Ein Sof. Darkness of unity, infinite, limitless light, higher aspect of light, angels and gods reside here, Gabriel, Uriel, etc. Above all we know, Ein Sof is the highest that people can conceive. Darkness is light that you cannot see. Third eye helps with this. The darkness only appears evil because it is misunderstood. Ein Sof, unity. Still on Ein Sof. Because it says here, Ein is the void or the no thing. Ein Sof is the limitless all, and the Ein Sof Or is the infinite light. So the Ein Sof, the limitless all, is androgynous beings merging together, and also where they begin to separate light and dark, first separating from itself. All right, and I think that pretty much covers the rest of what I had written about Lucifer. I feel like that's about as much as I can get into on the topic without doing further research yourself. I don't know if I'll do another video. If I do another video, it would be more about probably the demiurge, but I'm not sure if I will get into that anytime soon. Thank you all for hanging with me, for watching these videos. I really hope you appreciate this information, even if it helps just one person on their spiritual path to further understanding, gnosis, enlightenment, all of those things. Then I've done my job. So peace and blessings, everyone. Take care, and I love you all.